Fáilte, hello, good evening. Welcome to the Mythical Ireland Library. This is Live Irish Myths, episode number 319. Tonight's subject, overcoming the monster. Very interesting, I hope you all agree. It was a fabulous spring day here in the Boyne Valley. Cloudy to begin with, but the sun came through and it was a beautiful day. And we're not the only ones by the looks of some of the comments. I hope wherever you are in the world, you are having a nice day. We are a day late this week, and that's because I had other commitments yesterday and was unable to join you for the usual Monday live stream. That will be the same next week, by the way, just to give you early notice that I will not be live streaming on Monday of next week, but on Tuesday instead. That's the plan anyway. Anyway, before we get started tonight, it is incumbent upon me to give you all a very warm welcome to the library and to say that this is our last broadcast before we here in Ireland spring forward. We're springing forward in the early hours of next Sunday morning, which means that we'll be back to the normal time differences between ourselves and much of the states, but not all, as we found out. Isn't it Arizona? It doesn't spring forward or fall back. So if you're on the East Coast and there's a 4-hour difference, I think, isn't that right? Next week it reverts to the 5-hour difference. It's 8 p.m., just after 8 p.m. here in the Boyne Valley. It's just gone dark there now. Lovely extended twilight and the stars are twinkling overhead. But next week, it won't be getting dark till nearly 9 o'clock at night, which is fabulous. Love this time of year. Spring, yes. And early in the morning, the bird song, the dawn chorus is such a joy to behold. So let's try and do that. Let's try and bring a little bit of joy and humor and, a little bit of learning into all of your homes, wherever you are watching in the world. First to comment tonight, not surprisingly, because she's usually the first, is Elaine Dent Lingenfelter, who says it's a very warm day in Whitney, I presume that's Texas, 31 Celsius. Wow, yeah. And I thought we were doing well when it peaked at around 14, maybe 15 today. And that was a nice warm day. But it's only half of what you've got there, Elaine. So as I'm always saying, you've got plenty of surplus there. You can distribute among the rest of us. Lily Shambles is in the library. Evening all, hope you are well. In good form on this side. After the weekend celebrations, if you know what I mean. It's not so much a celebration these days, you just mark another successful orbit of the sun, But hey, we're alive. We're vertical. As they say in parts of Ireland, we're still throwing a shadow. Joe Butler, Auntie Joe, says, hello from Colorado, where it's a stunning spring day. You see, I said, didn't I, that we're not the only ones to be having nice spring weather. Brendan Byrne is saying, good evening from the Emerald Isle. A very good evening to you, Brendan. Hope you're in good form. Johnny Wilson, who's also in Texas, in Dallas, says it's 29 Celsius. A little bit cooler than where Elaine is, but nonetheless, a nice warm day and bearable, I'm sure. Valentina Bernardi is watching from Glastonbury. Hello to all our friends in Avalon. How nice of you to join us. We are due for 80 degrees in a few days. Wow. Colorado. That's saying something. Heather Marie Leaning is saying, evening to Tom King and Anthony. I hope you're all well. XX. See, Tom. Speaking of which, speaking of who is he here? Well, we'll find out shortly, won't we? Sandra Boothroyd is saying, evening time. Evening in time. Woohoo, everyone. Yes, you've avoided getting your name in the Obsidian book. Lexi Erickson says, hello, Anthony, Tom, and the mighty Tua. It's currently 21 Celsius in Denver, about 69 F. I'm in my car waiting to pick up my Bichons from grooming. Is that Bichon Frige? Is that how you say that? Wow, nice for them, I'll tell you. Talk about getting pampered. Mariana Dunn is in the house. Banachti, dear Tua, and Anthony Murphy from Alexandria and Virginia. Good afternoon to you, Mariana. Hope you're in good form. Alan Hoskins is in the house. Evening one and all from Ballina, Killaloe, somewhere on the Tipperary-Clare border. Hope all are well, and a belated happy birthday, Anthony. Well, thank you very much. As I say, another successful orbit of the sun. Barbara Murphy is saying, hello, everyone, from a warm Tucson, Arizona, currently 30, almost 34 degrees, and heading up as it's only 1 in the afternoon. Wow. Yeah, that's decent warm temperatures already. And yes, a happy birthday to Mavanwi, whose birthday is today. So I'm not sure if she's here. We'll find out shortly. But there's a few March hares in the group. I'm not the only one. Mavanwi, if you're watching, a very happy birthday to you from all of us. Anne McCallum says, hello, Antone and all the mighty too. I hope everyone's enjoying the warmer spring weather. We were -2, feeling like -8 earlier. Wow. But now 7 Celsius, fairly sunny with lovely puffy clouds. Happy to hear you enjoyed a lovely birthday, Anthony, and congratulations on discovering that beautiful medieval ring fort and flying your drone. An extra special birthday present. Yeah, and that was actually on my birthday. And the reason Anne knows about that, and some of you don't, is because Anne is a patron. And I can't exactly remember what level you're at, Anne. You might be Bronze Age, but you have to be at the Stone Age level and above on Patreon, and that's the address that's scrolling along the bottom. To see those exclusives that I share with patrons first and foremost. Sally Siggins is saying, evening from Sligo. Hello, Sally. I hope it was a nice day over there, as nice as it was here in the Boyne Valley. I was on tour today. I had a private tour with a lady from New Jersey, and we visited Newgrange, and we were in the chamber of Newgrange, and that has to be at least my 500th time. It could be a lot more than that. I've lost count over the years, but never, ever, ever get tired of it. And then we went to Douth, and for the whole hour or so we were at Douth, there was no one else there. It was beautiful, a lovely day, and the gorse at Douth is in full flower. Yeah, a sea of yellow flowers, and the lovely vanilla-like scent from them. It was just fantastic. So, is Carrowmore open yet, Sally, or you might just comment on that. Is Carrowmore back open, or when is it opening? And hopefully the refurbishment of the visitor centre there is coming along nicely. Desiree Riley is in the house. Hello to all the two. I hope you had a nice birthday, Anthony Murphy. I did indeed, Desiree. Thank you very much. As I say, another orbit of the sun completed. Lily, it's been a rotten, cold, cloudy day here. Dang. See, I told you, if only some of the Arizonians and the Texans would shave a few degrees off their temperature and send it across the ocean to you, it'd be a lot better, you know. Maureen Joyce, not that they have any part to play in it. Yes, if they could do that, I suppose they could work all sorts of miracles. Maureen Joyce is saying, good evening from an overcast Lexington in Kentucky. Hello, Maureen, and a very good afternoon to you. Maureen's watching on YouTube. Martina Drolene Linsky is saying, hello all. Hello to you, Martina of the Wrens. Drolene is a wren, isn't it? Dr. Liberace is saying, hello to all from upstate New York. Well, a very good afternoon to you, Dr. Liberace. Are you going to start singing for us? Watching on YouTube. Not sure we've seen you before. I don't recognize the name, but you're very welcome to Live Irishmits. Hope you enjoy the episode. We're talking about the basic plots of myth and fiction. And this is a fascinating book, but I'm going to read one chapter from it, and I hope you really, really enjoy it, as I'm sure you will. My wife and I will be there 3rd to the 24th of June. Brilliant stuff. We might meet you again on your travels. Johnny, we met you a few times last year, and obviously that your visit to Ireland made a good impression on you because you're coming back again, you know. It must have been a real celebration since he didn't show up yesterday. Yeah, actually, it's funny, but the reason I didn't show up yesterday was related to music, brass banding, and not actually related to continuing birthday celebrations. But I mean, you know, if you want to carry on the wishing me a happy birthday for the next week or two, I'm fine with that. I'm at the stage in life where, you know, you don't celebrate so much as realize that you're getting older, and it's like another notch on the wall of the cell, as it were. Happy birthday, mate. That's perfectly okay, Valentina. Thank you for the birthday wishes. Mad March hares. Well, I can't speak for the rest of them, but I certainly that applies for me. I'm a March hare. It was Richard Moore who used to say that to me. Oh, Anthony, you're a real March hare, you know. And yes, indeed, happy birthday to Movanwe Millward, who I hope will join us so that we can actually say happy birthday to her. How do I book your tour for Newgrange, please? So if you want to hire me privately, just send me an email. You'll be able to contact me through the website. You can contact me on the chat. or send an email, mythicalireland@gmail.com. And we can talk about that. Today is my unbirthday. What does that actually mean, your unbirthday? It's my unbirthday for 354 days of the year. Is that what you mean? Sally Sigan says, lovely day here in Sligo, still in the medieval period. Looking forward to getting back to touring in the Carrowmore megaliths in May, likely mid-May or early June opening. Okay, well, that's good to know. It's good to know. Looking forward to seeing you there. Hopefully we'll see you at least a couple of times during the season. Sally, some of my clientele are looking for Sligo now, and the fact that I am bringing people to Sligo, they really like that. I'm not confining myself to the Boyne Valley anymore. Rory O'Brien is saying, a very good evening from Cabinteely. A very good evening to you, Rory. Thank you for dropping in and saying hello on YouTube. We're so glad to have you here. Catherine Cleary is saying, good day to all from San Diego. So very happy to join you all. Happy belated birthday, Anthony. Thank you, Catherine, and indeed, happy birthday to Movanwe Millward, who, and Lexi is just saying it there, whose birthday is actually today. I'm, mine was a couple of days ago, so it doesn't really count anymore, Elaine will also be in County Meath from the 3rd to the 5th of June. There you go. They're all, I tell you, this place is a magnet. And no wonder all the magic that happens here, Barbara Murphy says, I resemble that remark. Mad March, baby. And another Murphy, too. I mean, you know what I mean? That's a lethal combination. A saying I hear occasionally, there's a fiddle in everything except one thing, a brass band. Yeah, it's very true. We had a renowned local character, I won't mention any names, here in Drogheda, who came into the brass band one time, and he said he wanted to play with the brass band. And we asked him, well, what would you like to play? Knowing that it was never going to happen, because this gentleman is a bit mad. And he said, the piano. We said, could you imagine marching down through the streets of Drogheda on St. Patrick's Day with a brass band and a piano being wheeled along and a player playing the piano along with the brass band? He didn't get it, Piano, no, it's not brass, and nor is a fiddle. Thank you, Sally. And yes, for your comment on the old Facebook a couple of days ago. 1717 is not so bad. Yeah, I know, right? It's all relative, really, I've gone from being, in darts terms, gone from being the bullseye to being treble 17. Next year it'll be different though. It'll be treble 17 plus single 1, Okay, thank you. That's all right, Martina. Brilliant stuff. Look forward to hearing from you. Heather Marie says, a happy unbirthday to you, to you. Now blow the candles out, my friend, and make your wish come true. Nice. I like that. Anyway, at this point, I'm all caught up with the comments. We're still departing a little bit from, we have a few more episodes to do of P.W. Joyce's A Social History of Ancient Ireland, which has been a bit of an epic grand voyage through Irish history and mythology and folklore. It's been great. And of course, we took a break last week because we were talking about St. Patrick and other things. And this week, I bought this book in the past fortnight, and having read the first couple of chapters of it, I just realized this is just absolutely right up my alley. And I suspect it'll be right up yours too. So it's called The 7 Basic Plots, Why We Tell Stories. And the author is Christopher Booker, which I think is a brilliant name for somebody who writes books. Booker, yeah? I write books, so I'm going to call myself Booker. That's probably his real name, in fairness. I'm not suggesting it's a false name, a pseudonym or anything like that. Anyway, I'll read some of what's on the cover just to whet your appetite and to give you some sort of an indication of what's inside. By the way, this book was published in 2004. I could nearly read the introduction too. Hang on, I just want to have a look at this now in terms of how much we have to read tonight. Yeah, I'm only going to read chapter 1. See, I don't want to read too much either because, there's the usual copyright issue. So what I've done in the past with books is I've read maybe 1 or 2 chapters so that I'm still within what we would call the fair use clause of copyright. but I do believe. And sure, look, if you really like it, you go and get yourself a copy. As I said, it was published in 2004. The publisher is Continuum, London and New York. Continuumbooks.com, it says. It was first published in 2004, reprinted in 2004, twice in 2005, and again in 2009. So it seems, I wonder, actually, somebody might do a quick search for it. Is it still available new, or do you have to buy it secondhand? It is a really interesting book. This remarkable and monumental book at last provides a comprehensive answer to the age-old riddle of whether there are only a small number of basic stories in the world, using a wealth of examples from ancient myths and folktales via the plays and novels of great literature to the popular movies and TV soap operas of today. It shows that there are 7 archetypal themes which recur throughout every kind of storytelling. And here are some of the reviews. One of the most diverting works on storytelling I've ever encountered. That's Dennis Dutton of the Washington Post. A magnificent achievement, erudite and beautifully written, the book reveals a profound insight into mankind's psychological needs and development. Stupendous. And that's Ronald Harwood from the Sunday Telegraph. This astonishing, enthralling, addictive, and vastly referenced volume about the birth of imaginative literature belongs on every writer's desk. And that's from the Independent on Sunday. A wonderful undertaking. I'm happy that people are once again looking at stories in this way. And that's by Margaret Atwood, the novelist. So there you go. Sally's sharing a link to Dubray Books, where it is available, apparently new. Date 11th of July 2019. So it's been reprinted again. It's €28.99. Let's call that €29. Well, I'll tell you what, absolutely worth it. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Sally, for sharing that link. So if you're following on Facebook, you'll be able to see that link. DubrayBooks.ie. Some of you who are based in the States may be able to find a supplier closer to you. You know, it's from Alice in Wonderland. Cannot claim credit. What's that about, Heather Marie? I missed something there. Elaine says, I'd love to be 1777 again. Oh, I know, right? Greetings to this is Rex Fortenberry. Anthony, just saw you in Mysteries from Above, the Dronehenge segment. Pretty darn good, except for the dude that pronounced Drogheda as Drawhunga. Happy birthday to all. Let's rock. Yeah, Drogheda is how a lot of people say it locally. But there you are. Right, yeah, let's get at it. Take a wee swig of the old Guinness. I mean, 7-Up. Are you all sitting comfortably? So no sign of Movanwe yet, and no sign of Tom King. On Gowa, he's busy hammering molten metal on that forge of his. No, this is chapter 1, and it's called Overcoming the Monster. I'm particularly interested in this for reasons that may become apparent as we talk through it. Dr. Liberace says about $26 plus postage. I'm sure it's probably available. 7 Basic Plots by Christopher Booker. It is available on Awesome Books, Amazon.co.uk, Eason's, that's in Ireland, Brit Books, Biblio. But if it's available on Amazon.co.uk, it's definitely available on Amazon.com. Yes, indeed it is. Amazon, well, some of you may or may not want to use Amazon. What is it there? It is $27 for the paperback, but there's a hardback version as well. Wow, nice. Anyway, yes, indeed. Happy birthday to Movanwe. Hopefully she either joins us or she, at the very least, watches this back to see all the birthday wishes. Yes, so let's go at it, shall we? Anthony, stop waffling and get on with the story, please. I'm just looking for something that will do as a bookmark, just in case I lose my place. But have I got a sheet of paper or something there that'll do? Sure, look. Yeah. Oh, don't want things tumbling down on top of me. Definitely not. So this is a quote from E.S. Hartland, The Legend of Perseus, 1896. Legends of the slaughter of a destructive monster are to be found all over the world. The thought underlying them all is that the monster slain is preternatural and hostile to mankind. And that immediately, I'm straight away I'm getting excited because I'm thinking of the Mata, the monster of the Boyne Valley that was slain by the Dagda, or in another version of the story, by the men of Ulster or the men of Erin, on a mysterious stone at Newgrange called Lech Ben. If you want to know more about that and fascinating insights, well, I hope you find them fascinating, you need to read the book that is called Mythical Ireland, New Light on the Ancient Past, recently reprinted again and now available on my website, signed copies, and we post pretty much worldwide. In 1839, a young Englishman, Henry Austin Layard, set out to travel overland to Ceylon, the island now known as Sri Lanka. Halfway through his journey, when he was crossing the wild desert region then known as Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, his curiosity was aroused by a series of mysterious mounds in the sand. He paused to investigate them, and thus began one of the most important investigations in the history of archaeology. For what Layard had stumbled on turned out to be the remains of one of the earliest cities ever built by humankind, biblical Nineveh, Niniveh. Over the decades which followed, many fascinating discoveries were made at Nineveh, but none more so than a mass of clay tablets which came to light in 1853, covered in small wedge-shaped marks, which were obviously some unknown form of writing. The task of deciphering this cuneiform script was to take the best part of the next 20 years. But when, in 1872, George Smith of the British Museum finally unveiled the results of his labours, the Victorian public was electrified. One sequence of the tablets contained fragments of a long, epic poem dating back to the dawn of civilization. It was by far the earliest written story in the world. Can anybody guess what story I'm talking about? I've just seen a typo, or as a sub-editor professionally in my day job, I'm like, yeah, that should be a full stop, not a comma. Fascinating. Mistakes even get past, professional book publishers and editors. And Scott Doherty is watching from Ennistimon in the county of Clare, here with a glass of wine and a plate of charcuterie. Happy Tuesday. That sounds delightful, Anne. I'll pop down afterwards. Sure, we keep a spare glass on hand. Sure, a plate of food as well, even though I've just eaten. Hello, Tom King. I see you're watching, says Anne. Oh, he's about to make a tremendously brilliant entrance. Wait for it. Can we have the trumpet fanfare, please? Or the fiddle fanfare. Somebody was commenting earlier. Not in a brass band. Reminds me of Shelley's Ozymandias. I met a traveller from an antique land. Yes, indeed. Anyway, that epic that I was talking about, I don't see any immediate replies. Does anybody know the epic story that was deciphered on cuneiform tablets recovered from Nineveh? No, doesn't look like it. I mean, I'm pausing for a second just to allow people the moment to. No, they don't. I don't think so. Anyway, it is this one. And this is also a book that I've picked up in the last couple of weeks. Yes, indeed, Lily and Joe, straight in there. Brilliant. We got some answers. Yes, indeed, we did. And we got some right answers. And Dr. Liberace says flood, and he's not wrong. Actually, I'm assuming that Dr. Liberace is a man, it could be a woman. So Dr. Liberace is not wrong, but it is indeed Gilgamesh. And I read this wonderful translation by Stephen Mitchell. By the way, that, if you're interested, is published by Profile Books. First published in 2004, and this is a 2005 paperback. So Gilgamesh, in addition to other things, contains a pre-Christian, pre-Bible version of the story of the flood of Noah. Dr. Liberace, apologies. See, I told you, never assume anything. To assume makes an ass out of you and me. Actually, it only makes an ass out of me. The first part of the Sumerian Epic of Gilgamesh, as we now know it, tells of how the kingdom of Uruk, UK, has fallen under the terrible shadow of a great and mysterious evil. The source of the threat is traced to a monstrous figure, Humbaba, who lives half across the world in an underground cavern at the heart of a remote forest. Tom King, hang on a second. No, that's just not acceptable. I'm sorry, Tom. No, look, that's it. There's no accepting that tardiness. That's just disgraceful. Carry on. Tom King, you're going in the Obsidian book. Tom King, aka Ongawa, sometimes known as the Viking, even though he's not trying to be a Viking. 2028 episode number 319. 1 hour's detention, Mr. King. You're supposed to be setting an example. It's terribly disappointing. There's no hiding from Anne's stuff. Yeah, exactly. She's keeping an eye on everyone. Who's in the room and who's not, Yes, I do tours of the mound across the road in Newgrange Farm. So watch out for, I hope to be announcing the dates for the Newgrange Farm Archaeological Park tours sometime soon. Well, come here, listen, I'm glad you have a sense of humor, Dr. Liberace, because you kind of need it, when you're in the Mythical Ireland Library, as they all can attest. My pretty awful dad joke, puns, one-liner, cheesy jokes, humor, The hero Gilgamesh goes to the armorers who equip him with special weapons, a great bow, and a mighty axe. He sets out on a long, hazardous journey to Humbaba's distant lair, where he finally comes face to face with the monster. They enjoy a series of taunting exchanges, then embark on a titanic struggle. Against such supernatural powers, it seems Gilgamesh cannot possibly win. But finally, by a superhuman feat, he manages to kill his monstrous opponent. The shadowy threat has been lifted. Gilgamesh has saved his kingdom and can return home triumphant. And I suppose in my reading of it, it's not quite as simple as that. That is a kind of a summary of the tale, but it leaves out certain aspects. And there's an aspect of he's trying to get the elixir of life in a way. He's trying to gain immortality. And he fails in that quest. So he actually comes back to Uruk quite disappointed. But anyway, let's not ruin the story by throwing in some facts. I now have points on my license. That's a good way of putting it, Tom. Penalty points in the Obsidian book. No way can you put Tom in the Obsidian book. No! It is done. He is there. Yes, and it cannot be erased. I've chipped it in megalithic art. I've used a piece of flint on a hammering stone, and his name is there in sandstone. It's not. It's pen on paper. But you get the story. In the autumn of 1962, nearly 5,000 years after the story of Gilgamesh was placed in the library at Nineveh, a period encompassing almost the whole of recorded human history, a fashionable crowd converged on Leicester Square in London for the premiere of a new film. And this is where I just love the way we're getting examples from ancient myth and modern movies. Dr. No was the first of what was to become, over the next 40 years, the most popular series of films ever made. In brackets, even by 1980, it was estimated that one or more of the screen adventures of James Bond had been seen by some 2 billion people, then half the Earth's population. With their quintessentially late 20th century mixture of space age gadgetry, violence, and sex, anything more remote from the primitive world of those inhabitants of the first cities who conceived the religious myth of Gilgamesh might seem hard to imagine. Brendan Byrne is saying, it's hard to see Tom King at the back of the room. Yeah, he's not really a back of the room kind of guy, really, is he? You know? Yes. That book might just fall into the forge. Whoops, says Brad. He's talking, of course, about the Obsidian book. Or maybe that page will be accidentally ripped out, find its way into the forge fire. Mags Watson is watching and tagging Paul Morell. I hope you're enjoying the live stream, Mags, the storytelling. Yet, consider the story which launched the series of Bond films that night in 1962. Fascinatingly, that is the year that the excavations began at Newgrange and at Knowth. The Western world falls under the shadow of a great and mysterious evil. The source of the threat is traced to a monstrous figure, the mad and deformed scientist Dr. No, who lives half across the world in an underground cavern on a remote island. The hero, James Bond, goes to the armourer who equips him with special weapons. He sets out on a long, hazardous journey to Dr. No's distant lair, where he finally comes face to face with the monster. They enjoy a series of taunting exchanges, then embark on a titanic struggle. Against such near supernatural powers, it seems Bond cannot possibly win. But finally, by a superhuman feat, he manages to kill his monstrous opponent. The shadowy threat has been lifted, the Western world has been saved, Bond can return home triumphant. Any story which can make such a leap across the whole of recorded human history must have some profound symbolic significance in the inner life of mankind. Which, by the way, that sentence there, it sounds very Jungian. It's like something you would expect to read in one of the works of C.G. Jung. Certainly, this is true of our first type of story, the plot which may be called Overcoming the Monster. Evania Lee has joined us. Marina Mighty Tua from the mighty Waikato, New Zealand. A very good morning to all our friends in Aotearoa. And we usually say happy Tuesday to you from all of us still in Monday. Today we're saying happy Wednesday to you from all of us still in Tuesday. Evania, what a pleasure to welcome you into the library. Hope you are in good form. The realm of storytelling contains nothing stranger or more spectacular than this terrifying, life-threatening, seemingly all-powerful monster whom the hero must confront in a fight to the death. We first usually encounter these extraordinary creations early in our lives, in the guises of the wolves, witches, and giants of fairy tales. Little Red Riding Hood goes off into the great forest to visit her kindly grandmother, only to find that Granny has been replaced by the wicked wolf, whose only desire is to eat Red Riding Hood. In the nick of time, a brave forester, something in my mouth. A brave forester bursts in to kill the wolf with his axe, and the little heroine is saved. Hansel and Gretel are cruelly abandoned to die in the forest, where they meet the apparently kindly old woman who lives in a house made of gingerbread. But she turns out to be a wicked witch, whose only wish is to devour them. Just when all seems lost, they manage to push her into her own oven and burn her to death, finding as their reward a great treasure with which they can triumphantly return home. Jack climbs his magic beanstalk to discover at the top a new world, where he enters a mysterious castle belonging to a terrifying and bloodthirsty giant. After progressively enraging this monstrous figure by 3 successive visits, each time managing to steal a golden treasure, Jack finally arouses the giant to what seems like a fatal pursuit. Only in the nick of time does Jack manage to scramble down the beanstalk and bring it crashing down with an axe. The giant falls dead to the ground, and Jack is left to enjoy the 3 priceless treasures he has won from its grasp. The essence of the overcoming the monster story is simple. Both we and the hero are made aware of the existence of some superhuman embodiment of evil power. This monster may take human form, e.g., a giant or a witch, the form of an animal, a wolf, a dragon, a shark, or a combination of both, the Minotaur or the Sphinx. It is always deadly, threatening destruction to those who cross its path or fall into its clutches. Often it is threatening an entire community or kingdom, even mankind and the world in general. But the monster often also has in its clutches some great prize, a priceless treasure, or a beautiful princess. So powerful is the presence of this figure, so great the sense of threat which emanates from it, that the only thing which matters to us as we follow the story is that it should be killed and its dark power overthrown. Eventually, the hero must confront the monster, often armed with some kind of, quote, magic weapons, unquote, and usually in or near its lair, which is likely to be in a cave, a forest, a castle, a lake, the sea, or some other deep and enclosed place. Battle is joined, and it seems that, against such terrifying odds, the hero cannot possibly win. Indeed, there is a moment when his destruction seems all but inevitable. But at the last moment, as the story reaches its climax, there is a dramatic reversal. The hero makes a thrilling escape from death, and the monster is slain. The hero's reward is beyond price. He wins the treasure or the hand of the princess. He has liberated the world, community, kingdom, the human race, from the shadow of this threat to its survival. And in honor of his achievement, he may well go on to become some kind of ruler or king. Now, I'm just going to pause for a moment. I would love to hear you read Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll. Please do a mythology in poetry session. Good idea, Dr. Liberace, and thank you for the suggestion. I shall add it to the list of future episodes. Natasha O'Shaughnessy is saying hello from France. Bonsoir, mademoiselle. Ça va? Oh no, not the Obsidian book. Arg! And not Tom King. Everybody's shocked. Tom King's name is gone in the book. Loch Nahannigan in Wicklow, the Lake of the Monster. There you go. Those stories are actually quite commonplace in Irish folklore. Oh, right. Hope you have the cameras charging. Northern Lights building. Oh, really? Let me have a look at the current. KP index is 2.67 at the moment. 24-hour max 3.33. It needs to be at least 5 for us to see aurora in Ireland, and preferably 6 or 7 or higher. So is it geomagnetic storms are possible later today, March 25th? Ah, excellent. Keep an eye out for that. Thank you for the forewarning, Sally. Paul Campbell is in the house. Hello, Paul. Paul is in the city of Galway over in the west of Ireland. Speed camera. Tom King. Michael Pike, greetings. I just got internet back up. Hello, Michael. At least you have an excuse for being late. Tom King was late. Tom King, of all people, was late tonight. I think he did that just to get his name in the book. I'll probably erase it afterwards, to be honest. I think people are right. It's not right that Tom should end up in the book. It's just not. He's been here since the beginning, you know. It's like he's one of the good ones. Tom King, Evania Lee, you should be honoured. Generally, it takes more than being late for a famous author to put you in one of their books. True. There have been few cultures in the world which have not produced some version of the overcoming the monster story. But a civilization we particularly associate with such stories is that of the ancient Greeks, whose mythology was swarming with monsters of every kind. From the original Titans overcome by Zeus, or the one-eyed Polyphemus blinded by Odysseus, to the mighty Python strangled by Apollo, or the riddle-posing Sphinx, who threw herself over the cliff when Oedipus proved to be the first man who could correctly answer her riddle, for which he was chosen to be king over Thebes. Tom needs an assignment for his detention. Yes, he needs to make something. He needs to carve out the Epic of Gilgamesh in metal. Oh, wait, that's too much. He could do a foreshortened version of the Mata, the slaying the Mata myth from the Boyne Valley on metal, on like a sheet of copper. Because I was going to say bronze, but that would cost an awful lot, you know. Let's not make it too difficult for him, you know. He says, basically telling him, like Jason and the Argonauts, to go and get the golden fleece, you know. Yeah, erase Tom's name. Yeah, otherwise you may have a revolt here. Brilliant. Yes, okay. You know, it is all a bit of fun. However, Anne Scott Doherty, in fairness to her, was sentenced, which is a very, very, very strong word, was punished, was ordered, I don't know, to do, you know, to write out the history of the Irish harp, which she did, and wrote it and sent it to me in the post. 100 lines. I will not be late again to Tom. Yeah, that's more like it. 100 lines, Tom. A Gilgamesh weapon in metal by Tom. You see, now we're just giving him inspiration. That's not punishment. That's like rewarding him for being late. He's going to be late every week at this rate. Brilliant. One of the most celebrated of the Greek monster-slaying heroes was Perseus, who had to overcome not one monster, but two. One female, one male. When, as a young boy, he is cast adrift in the world with his beautiful mother, the princess Danae. Interesting. Who are they, Danae? No. The two fall under the shadow of the cruel tyrant Acrisius, who demands that Danae should succumb to his advances. He's basically a creep. In a desperate bid to save his mother from this fate, young Perseus offers to perform any task the tyrant should set him. The cruel Acrisius therefore sends the boy off to the end of the world to obtain the head of the dreadful Gorgon Medusa, the mere sight of whose face is sufficient to turn a man to stone. Perseus is equipped by the gods with magic weapons, a pair of winged sandals, enabling him to fly, a helmet of invisibility, and a brilliantly polished shield. You see, these are all giving Tom ideas, in which you'll be able to see the Medusa's reflection without having to look at her directly. By remote and pathless ways, as Ovid puts it, Perseus reaches the Gorgon's lair at the western edge of the world and severs the Medusa's snake-covered head. It might seem that he has triumphantly concluded the task that has been set him. But we now learn that this was merely the essential preparation for a further immense task which awaits him on his journey home. As he flies back with his prize, he looks down to see a beautiful weeping princess, Andromeda, chained to a rock by the sea. She has been placed there as tribute to appease a fearsome sea monster, which has been sent by Poseidon to ravage her father's kingdom. Perseus sees the huge reptile rising out of the deeps to seize Andromeda and swoops down to engage it in battle. He is able to use the trophy of his first victory, the head of Medusa, to turn the monster to stone. He is rewarded with the hand of the princess for liberating her father's kingdom from this awful threat. He returns home, where he uses the Medusa's head to turn the tyrant Acrisius to stone, and eventually goes on to become king of Argos. Nothing to do with the catalogue before anybody jokes about that. Our Tom would put the fires of Mordor to good use. He certainly would. A word we used in my old job was not ordered, but encouraged. I believe Tom will understand that. Yeah. Excellent. Protected by St. Bridget. All in favour. Rossio, hello, I'm a little late. What are we reading? Oh, hang on. There's another one. If Tom's going in the book, Rossio's going in the book. Bad enough to arrive late, but then to announce that you're late, 2045. Rossio, late. Rossio, your punishment is to write a transcript of the entire episode from beginning to end. But welcome, no, seriously, welcome to Live Irish Myths. It's great to see you again. We are reading from the 7 Basic Plots, Why We Tell Stories, and the first chapter, which is about overcoming the monster. Can't argue with that. No, not the Obsidian book. Yeah, I know. Terrible, isn't it? Well, it's better than the Lilac book. Yeah. Another. This is turning into quite an epic. I'm not talking about the reading. I'm talking about the Black Book. Another celebrated monster slayer was Theseus, who also grows up alone in the world with his mother. On coming of age, he goes to rejoin his father, King Aegeus, in Athens, having to kill a series of monsters and villains on the way. But when he arrives, he finds his father's kingdom under a terrible shadow, cast by a rival kingdom across the sea in Crete, ruled over by the grim tyrant King Minos. Every 9th year, the Athenians must pay a tribute to the tyrant by sending the flower of their city's youth to feed the frightful monster, the Minotaur, half bull, half man, another creation of Poseidon, which lives at the heart of the mighty labyrinth, a dark enclosed stone maze from which no one has ever found a way out. Theseus volunteers to lead the party of young men and maidens who are to be sacrificed to this creature. And on arriving in Crete, he wins the love and support of the tyrant's daughter Ariadne, who secretly supplies him with the magic aids, a sword and a skein of thread he needs to win victory. Finding his way to the center of the labyrinth, unraveling the thread, he confronts the Minotaur and kills it. Is it Minotaur or Minotaur? I'm not sure. There's different pronunciations of that. Ariadne's thread enables him to retrace his way back through the maze of tunnels to the open air. It is true that, when they flee together back to Athens, Theseus abandons his princess on the island of Naxos. As he comes within sight of the mainland and forgets to hoist a white rather than a black sail to show his father that he has returned victorious, King Aegeus throws himself in grief into the sea, which ever afterwards bore his name, the Aegean Sea. But this also means that, like many another monster-slaying hero, Theseus succeeds to the kingdom, becoming the greatest ruler Athens ever had. He also eventually marries the princess by making Ariadne's sister Phaedra his king, or Phaedra. Rossio was saying, now I have to overcome the monster of writing a resume of this reading. If you're going to be late, don't announce it. I'm joking. No. Of course, you don't have to do all that. Just because Anne Scott Doherty set an example for all the rest of it doesn't mean you have to follow it. Top student she is now. I mean, she has guaranteed her name will never go in the Obsidian book again. It's a funny thing, isn't it? You arrive late and you get punished by having your name entered in the Obsidian book. But what happens when you don't turn up at all? Nobody gets punished for not being here. Surely it's worse to not be here than to arrive late. Where's the justice in that, I ask you, Compared with the array of loathsome and supernatural monsters in Greek mythology, not forgetting the succession of horrors like the many-headed Hydra overcome by Heracles in the course of his 12 labors, the villain of the most familiar overcoming the monster story in Jewish legend might seem almost domesticated. But when the Philistine army invaded the kingdom of Saul, Nothing could have seemed more terrifying to the children of Israel than the Philistines' towering, seemingly invincible champion, the boastful giant Goliath. When an obscure little shepherd boy, David, stepped forward to challenge the giant, first his own brothers, then the Israelite army as a whole, could not have been more scornful, until they saw the deadly aim with which he cast his magic sling stones into the giant's forehead, sending the great figure toppling lifeless to the ground. Does that remind anybody of an Irish myth? It should do. If you've been paying attention for the last 318 episodes, it should do. A giant, sort of evil, monstrous champion, and a hero armed with a slingshot that casts a stone through the skull of the giant and causes it to fall dead to the earth. And a detail of the story which might be overlooked is what happens to David after his victory. By the way, I will answer that in a minute. There you go. Heather Marie has the answer. Balor and Lugh. Yes, indeed. Caught Moitura, second battle of Moitura, in which Lugh confronts Balor, the evil, one-eyed, cyclopean monster, vicious, evil chief deity or chief figure of the Fomorians, and using his slingshot, fires a stone through the eye and splats the poison of Balor's poisonous eye all over his own army, as in Balor's army, and Balor falls dead on the battlefield, and the battle's over, and the Tuatha Dé Danann win. Yes, indeed. Well done, Heather Marie. Top marks, student of the week. You'll get your name entered in the gold book if I had one. For being the savior of his country, he is given the hand in marriage of King Saul's daughter, the Princess Michal. And eventually, the young giant slayer succeeds Saul to become his country's greatest king. The hero's immediate reward for slaying the monster may not always be the winning of a princess and succession to a kingdom, but in some form or another, these are rarely far away. In the case of Cot Moitura, Nuadu is the king of the Tuatha Dé Danann, ostensibly, but really Lugh is the one who commands them all into action and becomes a sort of a surrogate king in a way, you know. Maybe those magical sling stones are what those beautiful carved stone balls are. They just lost their magic when the maker died. Yeah. Delighted winning student of the week. That was Heather Marie, wasn't it? And Devania. Yes. Well done. Colleen Wa. The heroes immediately. Sorry. Another notable constellation of monster tales, for instance, were those which loomed up in the imaginations of the inhabitants of Northern Europe amid the mists and darkness of the first millennium of the Christian era. The world has rarely seen such a parade of giants, dragons, trolls, treacherous dwarves, foul friends, and loathly worms as infested the Norse sagas and Germanic and Celtic epics of these times. And here the hero's immediate reward for slaying the monster was likely to be a fabulous treasure. One such tale, later to achieve wider currency from its adaptation by Wagner, was the episode in the Volsunga saga, which tells of how the young hero Sigurd, with the aid of his magic weapon, the great sword Gram, slays the horrible monster Fafnir, who sits in the middle of the wilderness brooding over a great treasure, which includes access to all sorts of runic knowledge, such as an understanding of the song of the birds. But he then goes on to discover the beauteous battle maiden Brynhild, lying asleep on a mountaintop, guarded by a ring of magic flames, which only, quote, the true hero, unquote, can enter. And it is the treasures and the secret knowledge he has won from his victory over Fafnir, which enable him to waken her and win her love. Another celebrated overcoming the monster story from the Dark Ages is that of Beowulf. Again, we begin with the familiar image of a kingdom which has fallen under a terrible shadow. The little community of Heorot, Heorot, which is nightly menaced by the predatory assaults of the mysterious monster Grendel. The young hero Beowulf comes from across the sea and eventually, in a great nocturnal battle, deals the monster a mortal wound, only to discover when he tracks the trail of Grendel's blood that he must confront the monster's even more terrible mother in the lair at the bottom of a deep lake where she is brooding over the body of her dead son. Although Beowulf's immediate reward for his victory over the two monsters is a rich hoard of, quote, ancient treasures and twisted gold, unquote, from the grateful king whose kingdom he has saved, he then returns home to become king over his own kingdom. Many years later, at the end of his life, he has to confront a third monster in a profoundly symbolic episode, which we shall look at much later in the book. Of course, you'll have to get that to follow up on it. Of the many overcoming the monster stories thrown up by the Christian Europe in the Middle Ages, probably the most familiar is that of St. George and the Dragon, which appears to be a Christian adaptation of the Perseus myth. The hero comes to a kingdom which is being ravaged by a dragon and, like Perseus, finds a beautiful princess tethered by the edge of the sea, where she has been placed by her countrymen in a last desperate bid to buy off the monster's attacks. The monster approaches and George slays him, but unlike Perseus, George is not then able to marry the princess he has freed. Since this is rather self-consciously a Christian version of the tale, his reward is simply to insist that all the inhabitants of the country should be baptized. In other words, that they should all succeed to another kingdom, the kingdom of Christ. What is this? Two archaeologists disagreeing and then arguing about it. Who's bringing the booze? What is going on? Okay. There's a sort of a side discussion on. I'm not even going to get involved. I will leave us at it. During the centuries of diminishing faith in the supernatural, which followed the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, the more obviously fantastic dragons and monsters of old slipped below the horizon of European storytelling, although they never faded away altogether. But then, in a way which to the rationalistic age of the Enlightenment, or even through most of the literal materialistic Victorian era, would have seemed wholly improbable, fabulous and terrifying monsters came back into vogue in a quite remarkable fashion. Dawn Hilton, are you... Well, you're definitely going in the black book. You're the third one today, by the way. You're all setting a very, very bad example to the rest of the class. 2059. Yes, this is all under episode number 319. Dawn Hilton. Late. And your punishment is the same as Rossios. You have to produce a transcript, a handwritten or typewritten, a transcript of the entire episode. That'll teach you. Well, do not be late to one of my lectures. Oh no, the Obsidian book. Yes, it's the third time it's been. Don't sit down quickly and keep quiet. Shh. Yeah. You know, you've never learned. None of you. It's like, I'm late, so I'll announce I'm late. It's almost like you want to go in the Obsidian book. Yes. It all happened quite suddenly, in the closing years of the 19th century. Over the previous 100 years, there had been a number of premonitory signs, notably in the taste for Gothic horror, which had been such an important reflection of the rise of the Romantic movement, with stories such as The Castle of Otranto, 1764, and Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, 1817. But in the space of just a few years in the 1890s, there appeared in England a rash of stories of the kind which have played such a dominant part in popular entertainment ever since. Ghost stories, Tales of horror, science fiction, in which monsters of the most grotesque and improbable variety once again surged to the forefront of Western popular storytelling. Lexi didn't agree with my supposition that those extraordinary stone balls were the magical sling stones. So now we drink booze and argue. All I need to do is win. To win is feed her Scottish whiskey. Rossio says, here's my part of the analysis so far. A more recent adaptation to overcome the monster is Shrek defeating the dragon to rescue Fiona, and then he later overcomes a shorter monster, which is the king, and wins the princess. Brilliant. Fantastic. Well done, Rossio. You're almost getting your name immediately removed from the Obsidian book. Kathy Maydale. Oh, no. Oh, no, I'm late. It's very odd. 70-degree weather here today. So I was outside and totally forgot. Please don't put me in the Obsidian book. We're supposed to get... So if you're late and you ask, please not to be put in the Obsidian book, should I not put you in the book? You forgot. You're going in the book. Sorry, Kathy May. You're the fourth person to win the book today. Believe it or not. Number 4. Along with Tom King, Rossio, and Dawn Hilton. Kathy May. Late by an hour, by the way. You're in the Obsidian book. Sorry. Your punishment is to be here an hour early for next week's episode. No. Who will battle the Obsidian book and save all of Mythflix's crew from its evil papers? Thought you were going to say evil powers, evil papers, the evil papers of the Obsidian book. Look, come here. It is all a bit of fun, right? Isn't it? Honestly. I mean, I'm not giving out to you for being late. I'm happy that you're here. I'm just giving out for you for announcing that you're late. If you're late, just don't say anything. Just sneak in at the back. No one will notice. And then you won't get your name in the book, you know? Yes, Lily, I agree. It's almost as if people want to get in the book, you know? In 1894, a young Cambridge Don, M. or James, wrote a story called Canon Elbrick's Scrapbook. Tales of ghosts and hauntings have been told since time immemorial. But with the first of his series of ghost stories, James raised the form onto a new plane of horror. In a decaying town in the Pyrenees, an English scholar, Denniston, finds a folio of old manuscripts, which belongs to a canon of a local cathedral who had died in mysterious circumstances 200 years before. I'll do it in a sort of a Hollywood trailer sort of dramatic Monty Pythonish accent. One drawing in particular catches his attention. A group of horrified soldiers at the court of King Solomon, surrounding a strange, shapeless creature. Late that evening, while he is examining the drawing in his lodgings, Denniston suddenly becomes aware of a terrible presence in the room. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that terrible presence in the room is the Obsidian book with its evil papers. Oh, this is getting ridiculous. He was late. Says Tom. The sensible thing is just drop a comment at some point and Anthony will apologize for missing you earlier. Exactly, right? Exactly, Lily. You know exactly the form, you know. I'll take a step to the front line to save thee from the obsidian volume of dark pages. Bring me my spear. Brilliant. Yes. Okay, next time I'll sneak in. No, you've to be here an hour early next week, Kathy May, which might work out quite well because we're springing forward next week, you know. We're really having fun with 2 books today, the 7 plots and our own Obsidian book. Okay, I'll have to learn to change my form of entering, you know. Yeah. Mind you, since oh, now we're getting controversial. Since Anthony is a day late, does that mean he has to go in the book? Oh, controversial. Oh, I tell you what, let's skip that question and just keep reading, shall we? And here's a quote from, what is this called? Canon Alberic's scrapbook by, by M.R. James. Denniston suddenly becomes aware of a terrible presence in the room. He flew out of his chair with deadly, inconceivable terror clutching at his heart. The shape was rising to a standing posture behind his seat. Coarse hair covered it, as in the drawing. The lower jaw was thin, but what can I call it? Shallow, like a beast's. Teeth showed behind the black lips. There was no nose. The eyes of a fiery yellow, against which the pupils showed, black and intense, were the exulting hate and thirst to destroy life. Talk about ruining it. And the exulting hate and thirst to destroy life which shone there were the two most horrifying features of the whole vision. Unquote. Nice comment, Rossio. Denniston grabs at a crucifix as at a magic weapon. Two servants rush in and feel something passing them out of the room. Denniston destroys the drawing. The monster is overcome and appears no more. Sounds like a 19th century version of Ray Bradbury, doesn't it? 3 years later, in 1897, an Anglo-Irish former civil servant, Bram Stoker, published Dracula. Again, stories of blood-drinking vampires had been told at various times before in history, but Stoker's version was conceived on a new plane of horror. The story divided into two parts. In the first, the hero, a young English lawyer named Harker, makes a visit to a mysterious ruined castle deep in the wolf-infested forests of Transylvania. There is an air of indescribable evil, both about the place and about his client, Count Dracula, a man with sharp, protruding teeth and unnaturally red lips. What follows makes any Gothic horrors of a century before seem trivial. Harker discovers that he is trapped by a man who can crawl face downwards on the castle wall by moonlight, whom he finds one day lying as if dead, bloated with blood, like a filthy leech, exhausted with his repletion, who seems to be in command of a whole army of equally horrible supernatural spirits. Just how the hero escapes from seemingly certain doom is never made clear. But the second part of the story tells of how Dracula invades England, and in particular the battle by Harker and a group of friends to prevent the monster taking over two young girls, one of them Harker's intended wife Mina, to recruit them into his shadow army of the living dead. The first of them, Mina's friend Lucy, falls fatally into Dracula's power. Quote, far down the avenue of yews, he saw a white figure advance, Lucy Westenra. But yet, how changed? The sweetness was changed to adamantine, heartless cruelty, and the purity to voluptuous wantonness. Her lips were crimson with fresh blood, her eyes unclean and full of hellfire. Unquote. Don't have nightmares, as they used to say on Crime Watch. Having destroyed one princess, Dracula then turns his nocturnal attacks on the other, the hero's fiancée, Mina. Gradually, we see her sinking away into the monster's deadly power. Harker and his friends eventually hunt Dracula down and pursue him back to his Transylvanian lair, where, just in the nick of time before Mina finally expires, they manage to operate their, quote, magic weapon, unquote, by plunging a stake into the monster's heart, the only way a vampire can be killed. Quote, Before our very eyes, and almost in the drawing of a breath, the whole body crumbled into dust and passed from our sight. Unquote. Mina and mankind are saved. In 1898, the year after Dracula, I should have put the emphasis on the last digit, shouldn't I? In 1898, the year after Dracula, H.G. Wells published The War of the Worlds. Again, it was by no means the first science fiction story, but the comparatively cosy fantasies of Jules Verne had contained nothing like this. Jules Verne wrote, wasn't it, Journey to the Center of the Earth? Puffs of fire are seen on Mars. Huge meteorites flash across the sky, and some come to Earth in southern England. The initial mood of excited curiosity changes to alarm when it appears that these mysterious half-buried cylinders contain life. Quote, as it bulged up and caught the light, it glistened like wet weather. The large, dark-coloured eyes were regarding us steadfastly. It was rounded and had, one might say, a face. There was a mouth under the eyes, the brim of which quivered and panted and dropped saliva. The body heaved and pulsated convulsively. A lank, tentacular appendage gripped the edge of the cylinder. Another waved in the air. Unquote. The nightmarish realization dawns that these huge fungoid monsters climbing out of the cylinders are implacably hostile. They assemble great tripod machines which stride across the countryside, armed with heat rays and the deadly black smoke, against which mankind has seemingly no defence. Southern England is laid waste as towns and cities burn. Corpses pile up, and the countryside is gradually submerged beneath the horrible red weed. Can the world survive? Then, as the hero cowers in a cellar in South London, all alone and imagining his wife to be dead, he hears, floating across the deserted, half-ruined city, a ghastly, wailing cry, "Allah! Allah! Allah!" He cautiously picks his way up to Primrose Hill, where he sees the great machines standing silent, the dead Martians hanging out of them as strips of decaying meat. The invading monsters have fallen prey to humble earthly bacteria, the one thing against which they had no defense. Imagine nobody gave them penicillin. Mankind is saved, and the story ends on the image of the hero being joyfully reunited with his wife, who turns out, like him, to have miraculously survived. I could do that. Yeah, I need to. It's very time consuming to record the book, so I need to sort of hire a studio, I think, But yeah, I'd be willing to do it, definitely. And I think there's hearing a story, hearing a book is very different to reading it. Totally different experience. I have highlighted this little group of stories dating from the closing years of the 19th century in some detail, because they represent one of the most remarkable developments in the entire history of stories. The sudden onset of that fascination with monsters of a near supernatural power, which was to become such a conspicuous figure of 20th century popular storytelling. In the latter day Draculas, bug-eyed extraterrestrials, triffids, and other shapeless creature of the night, which have swarmed in such numbers across the cinema screens and through the fantasy life of our time, we may see almost everything which characterized the most lurid monster tales of the distant past. Since Perseus and Andromeda, for instance, has there been any more vivid image of the princess struggling in the clutches of the monster than the famous shot in the film King Kong, showing the pretty young heroine being waved above the skyline of New York in the grip of the gigantic ape? What is certain is that it is by no means necessary to believe in the physical reality of such monsters for them to loom up, as it were, unbidden in the mysterious processes of the imagination which lie behind the creation of stories. Indeed, so fundamental is this phenomenon to an understanding of how stories work that we now look at it more closely. And this is chapter 2, which I can't really read. So, but I'll read the first page of it. And then the rest, well, all I can recommend is that you get your own copy. You may be able to get it in your library, by the way. You don't necessarily have to buy a copy. Ask your library if they can get you a copy. This is from the Oxford English Dictionary. Monster. Something extraordinary or unnatural. An animal deviating in one or more of its parts from the normal. An imaginary animal having form either partly brute and partly human, or compounded from elements from two or more animal forms. A person of inhuman and horrible cruelty or wickedness. What is this monster which, since time immemorial, has so haunted the imagination and fantasies of mankind? As we shall see, it is a question of deepest importance to the understanding of stories, relevant to tales of many kinds other than just those centered on the plot we have been discussing. The question may be put in the singular, speaking of one monster rather than many, if only because the essential characteristics of this creature are so unvarying, regardless of the variety of outward guises in which he or she appears. For a start, throughout the world's storytelling, we find the monster being described in strikingly similar language. It tends, of course, to be highly alarming in its appearance and behavior. It may be, and these are descriptions, horrible, terrible, grim, misshapen, hate-filled, ruthless, menacing, terrifying. As goes without saying, it is mortally dangerous, deadly, bloodthirsty, ravening, murderous, venomous, poisonous. It is a deeply deceitful and tricky opponent to deal with. Cunning, treacherous, vicious, twisted, slippery, depraved, vile. There is also often something about its nature which is mysterious and hard to define. It may be strange, shapeless, sinister, weird, nightmarish, ghastly, hellish, fiendish, demonic, dark. In other words, in its oddly elusive way, we see this night creature, whether it is a giant or a witch, a dragon or a devil, a ghost or a Martian, representing, often vested in a kind of dark supernatural aura, everything which seems almost inimical, threatening, and dangerous in human nature, when this is turned against ourselves. Then there are the monster's physical attributes. And here we must not be misled by the fact the monster is so often represented as an animal or even a composite of several animals, e.g., the imaginary dragon, which we can only conceive of as made up from the organs of existing animals, such as a reptilian body, a bat's wings, and the head of a giant toad or lizard. Such monsters may be animal in form, but they are invariably invested with attributes no animal in the natural world or in nature would possess, such as a peculiar cunning or malevolence. They are, in fact, preternatural, having qualities which are at least partly human. Again, of course, there are many monsters in stories which are human, but invested with animal attributes, either directly, like the Minotaur, half man, half bull, or more often, just in the way they are described, e.g., the comparisons of Dracula to a leech and a bat. In other words, they are seen as less than wholly human. And even when monsters are shown as entirely human in appearance, they tend to be in some way physically abnormal. Abnormally large, giants, abnormally small, dwarves, or in some way deformed, e.g., missing an eye, quite commonplace in Irish mythology, or a limb, again, reasonably common in Irish mythology, or hunchbacked. In short, whether it is an animal, human, or a mixture of both, whether it is animal, human, or a mixture of both, or even like John Wyndham's Triffids, an intelligent plant, The monster will always have some human characteristics, but will never be represented as wholly human. By definition, the one thing the monster in stories can never be is an ideal, perfect, whole human being. Here are the monster's behavioral attributes. We invariably see it acting in one of three roles. I'm going to finish on this. One, in its first active role, the monster is predator. It wanders menacingly or treacherously through the world, seeking to force or to trick people into its power. It may have a lair which it sallies out from, but primarily in this role, it is looking for victims. It walketh, this is quote, it walketh about seeking whom it may devour, unquote, spreading fear and destruction and casting a shadow wherever its influence is felt. Two, the monster's second, more passive role as holdfast. It sits in or near its lair, usually jealously guarding the treasure or the princess it has won into its clutches. It is in this role a keeper and a hoarder, broody, suspicious, threatening destruction to all who come near. And three, when its guardianship is in any way challenged, the monster enters its third role as avenger. It lashes out viciously, stirring from its lair, bent on pursuit and revenge. The 7 basic plots. And so, just to read chapter titles to whet your appetite if you're interested in delving in further. Overcoming the Monster, Rags to Riches, The Quest, Voyage and Return, Comedy, and there's a second chapter, Comedy 2, The Plot Disguised, Tragedy, The 5 Stages, or Tragedy, The Divided Self, or Tragedy, The Hero as Monster, Rebirth, and The Dark Power, From Shadow into Light. And Scott Doherty's wondering, any chance of an autumnal Mythical Ireland reunion? I'd be on for that. Yeah, let's talk about possibilities. Absolutely, yeah. And I feel that we should probably do a reading of Gilgamesh as well. I found it. I've obviously encountered Gilgamesh in many mythological books over the years, but I had never actually read a translation of the saga from beginning to end. It is quite interesting. And of course, we'll be able to do some comparative work, some comparative study, and where we encounter similarities with Irish and other myths. So that's going to be a thing, I think. So before we finish, I wanted to show you the latest arrival to the Mythical Ireland Library. But before I do that, I'm actually just going to wait and check the comments and questions because please, a tour is in order. Yes, indeed, a tour is in order. Lovely, says Lynn. In early 2020, says Paul Campbell, just before the COVID-19 pandemic, I was in SNS, is that how it's pronounced? Music shop in the centre of Kilkenny City. I there met the owner, Frank Salmon, who was a close relation of Bram Stoker, who met Dracula. Wow. Fascinating stuff. Does he write or perform music that's inspired by Dracula by any chance? Monsters are never wholly human because they lack a soul. Yeah. I guess some were based on dinosaurs. Must have been an interesting thing before the science of paleontology, that when people did encounter dinosaur bones, that this is where the great monsters of myth, some of them, might emerge from, The Brigand book has a good ring to it, says Ivania. Just putting that into the mighty Tua suggestion box. And all suggestions are very welcome, Ivania. Brilliant stuff. Nope, don't need to hire a studio. Cover the walls of the downstairs loo with old quilts. Block out, I don't have a downstairs loo. Block out all sound, get a decent mic. Whether your sound gone wonky or is it me? Well, yeah, on the live stream that happens. But yeah, it's very difficult here because it's a very urban setting and there's dogs and there's traffic and there's all sorts of noise. So I'd have to kind of think about that. I could do it very, very late at night, like 1 o'clock in the morning. But We'll see. We'll see. But we'll certainly. This is where they had those penny weeklies. What were they called? Yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah, the penny weeklies. Back in the day, an awful lot of fiction used to get to the public through periodicals and magazines, you know. Anyway, the latest arrival to the Mythical Ireland Library is quite a beautiful book to certainly to hold and feel. It's called People, Prehistory and the Past. It is published, yeah, it's published by, I think it's Four Courts Press. Yes, Four Courts Press. Essays in honour of John Waddell. John Waddell is an archaeologist, but you may know, because I think I did an episode, but we've certainly mentioned him on numerous occasions. An archaeologist who also has, in recent times, written about mythology and looking at how much there is in common between the mythological descriptions of archaeological monuments and the archaeology of same. Anyway, I was reading through this, and there are 11 different essays. And look, I'll be honest, some of them whet my appetite big time. Fascinating. Some of them not so much, but that's just because they're not areas of my interest. But there's at least two that I will be reading at the earliest opportunity, and reading and dissecting, not dissecting, but taking lots of notes and, you know, hopefully being inspired by. One is called Capital Fellows, Capstones and Potential Capstones at the Carrowmore Megalithic Complex. And that's by Stefan Berg and Robert Hensey. So I'm definitely interested in reading that. I want to read that. Now, there are several, but there's two in particular that jumped out at me. And the chapter by archaeologist Joe Fenwick, called Unraveling the Spiral, Passage Tomb Alignment, Related Curbstone Art, and Cycles of Monumental Construction at Brunabonia. So I'm definitely going to be fascinated by that. Two more, From Prehistory to Medieval, Living Among the Ancestors in the Burren, County Clare, by Michelle Comber, or is it Comber or Comber? I'm not sure, and Noel McCarthy. What was the other one? Identity in Early Bronze Age Western Ireland, a study of pottery and landscape, by Carlton Jones. Throwing the King Out with the Bath Water, a contribution to the debate concerning archaeology and early vernacular literature, by Conor Newman. That's another one that's going to be absolutely fascinating. So I was wrong in saying two. There's 5 or 6 here. And even Daniel Curley's essay, Leaving Their Mark on the Land, Evidence for the Heroic Narratives as Seen in the Archaeology and Toponymy of Machara Connacht. So yeah, I know this is going to be enjoyable. Now, it's not an inexpensive work. It is it 48 euros? New titles. No, I can't find it. Of course, it wouldn't come up on, what's it called? People Prehistory. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, it is actually 49 euros and 50 cent. Let's call that 50 euros, you know. We have Autumn Festival happening, where I'll be participating this Friday, going to listen to the Harp and Lyre here in New Zealand. Brilliant stuff, Ivania. And of course, we forget we're in spring and we're all excited about the lengthening days. And it's the opposite happening for you. Did we talk about the spiral in the sky last night? No, we did not. I did not see it, unfortunately. I was playing music at the time indoors, so I missed it. I missed all the fun. I've seen some of the videos. I've seen some of them today, and it's brilliant, you know. At the Galway Astrofest, Kevin, who helped move some of your books, has the same birthday as you, Anthony. Ah! Brilliant stuff. Happy birthday to him. Another of the March Hares. Rossio. Here's my conclusion, Mr. Professor Anthony. So the monster represents all the evils around us, depicted as an animal or often a magical creature because it's something wild or feral, something we as humans cannot control since it comes from nature itself. And the battle against that monster represents one of our deepest fears, which is fear of death, fear of sickness, or fear of the unknown. And the final reward after defeating or overcoming that monster is a life filled with the reward of life, or a quiet life, with a companion to settle a family, or worthy heirs to continue to spread the principles, values, and knowledge to keep defeating those monsters or fears. I like that, Rossio. That is very considered. And that's almost your punishment. Like your whole homework is nearly all done at this point. Nice insights there. Thank you, Anne McCallum. I am glad you enjoyed the episode. Could you write down those titles, please? Says Barbara. Are you talking about the chapter headings? I could, but that would be work. I could just take a picture of the chapter page and share it, couldn't I? There wouldn't be anything wrong with that. It would whet your appetite and make you all want to go out and either get your own copy of the book or go to your library and see if they'll be able to get a copy. I think almost certainly the first one I'm going to read is Joe Fenwick's chapter about Brunobonia and the spiral and passage tomb alignments. So that'll be interesting. Good to see new insights from archaeology, you know. Yeah. I need to buy myself a birthday present, says Barbara. One is going to be sorted for Anthony. 2 days late to Anthony, 2 days early for me. Patreon, here I come. Dang, Rossio is good. Yeah. Just the book. So what you can do also, don't forget, is when you're watching the video back afterwards, just freeze the frame, pause it, and write it down. Rathcrohan Mound. And just in case you need to see it again, I'm very happy to stand here and be motionless for a moment. There you go. Anyway, what a pleasure. It's been great fun. 4 names in the black book. We need to improve on that, folks. Come on, you know. Don't announce that you're late. I'm joking. Speaking of which, before you all vanish out the door, oh, yeah. You can tell a lot about a woman by her hands. For example, if they're around your throat, she's probably slightly upset. I just found out that the neighborhood had a meeting about a crazy person in the estate. It's a bit weird that they didn't invite me. Did I say that one last week? My smartphone accidentally took a video of my shoes. There was some good footage. Great stuff, Barbara. Glad to have helped. And Samantha Healy, for some reason, is saying hello, Anthony and Tom and all the two. I'm not sure if I saw you earlier, Samantha, or what, but we're hello and goodbye. Thank you all for joining us. We are back next week on Tuesday with the next episode. Don't forget to please become a patron, support Mythical Ireland. A paying patron, preferably. Free patrons get nothing that isn't already on social media. The paid ones gets exclusives. And the other thing is, don't forget to sign up to the email newsletter, which people have. The reaction seems to be quite good. People are enjoying that. And you could do so on the Mythical Ireland website. That's at mythicalireland.com. Hope you all have a fabulous week. And as I say, here in the Northern Hemisphere at least, the spring is in the air. Hopefully next week's episode, it'll still be bright when we start. Wow, brilliant. Bring it on. It's been a long old winter, you know. Linda Kay is saying thank you from Oregon. Thank you, Linda. All the way from the Pacific Northwest to the east coast of Ireland. Brilliant. Not sure if we've seen you before, Linda, but you're very welcome. Glad you enjoyed it. Always great to hear something new and be refreshed on things I should know. Hey, Sally, there's so much stuff, though. Really, there is. It's kind of really impossible to know it all, you know. And yeah, every day is a learning day. That's the way I look at it. Great to see you, by the way. And we'll hopefully see you at Carramore during the summer. Hopefully, I'll be up that direction at some point. Looking forward to it. Oh, yeah, someone's just pointing out something. Anne's got dirty. We didn't have a single rabbit hole tonight. Wow. I was too distracted by people coming in late wanting their names put in the Obsidian book, and I think that was the real challenge. How could you possibly go down a rabbit hole when you had to get the book out so often, you know? Yes, I jest, of course. I guess not for a while, thank you. Okay, Linda, brilliant. Well, hopefully we'll see you next week. And, of course, don't forget, to you and to everyone, if you miss an episode, they're all stored in as videos on the YouTube channel. You can watch back afterwards. If you're really hard up for something to do and something to watch, it's not quite the same as being live, where you can get slagged off and get your name in the black book and be involved in those immersive rabbit holes that come up. Anyway, have a great one. Thank you all for watching. All that remains for me to say is Ichawa, Kolosov, Slán go fóill, and Tóg go bugé, and that last one's very important. Take it easy.